Hi, everybody.
Hi, Susan. Thank you for making time to join us today. I'm so excited. I was telling Tracy and Crystal as well earlier.
Thanks, Ellie.
Yeah, great. So let's dive in. We have a lot of questions that we prepared for you today. When I first asked you for your bio and I received it, it was really interesting that the first line of your bio actually wrote something like, you're responsible for creating a center for innovation whose mission is to educate students, to think entrepreneurially, and support university innovators. It sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah,
it
is a lot of work. It is a lot of work, but that's my passion. I'm very passionate about education, number one, and number two, just trying to teach university students about how they can think more entrepreneurially. So you see my building in the back. That's the corner of University and Metcalf, and that building is a rendering of what we are looking to build. And construction should start sometime this fall. So it's not impossible, but it sure took a long time.
Awesome. So, we'll talk a little bit about that later as well.
Okay.
But, just on that word innovation, as HTDC, we grapple with that term every day. What does that mean to us? What does it mean for Hawaii? How much does it intersect with technology? So just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on it. What does innovation mean to you?
So in my mind, innovation is about thinking differently, about looking at the way things are done currently and how they can be done better, faster, cheaper, stronger. It's just constant improvement. And we live in a time now which is very, it's a fantastic time because there's all this technology that allows us to revisit how we do things and have more robust solutions, less time consuming. And so we have to keep looking at all these new developments and innovations and see how it applies to what we do in our work. So, you can't pigeonhole it, I think. Innovation happens in the home, innovation happens at work. It's everywhere, it's all around us, you can't escape it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can also talk a little bit about that more as we talk about Ethiton project. But I think what was interesting for me is, I'm not from Hawaii. I was born and raised in Singapore, where this whole word of innovation, entrepreneurship kind of started really early on when I was growing up. But what was interesting was that my dad, who's an entrepreneur, told me, entrepreneurship cannot be taught. It's something that's innate or not. So what do you think about that? Can it be taught?
Well, I hate to disagree with your father, but I definitely think it can be taught. Everything just has to do with what do you want out of your life and how hard are you willing to work for it. I don't think any of us are predestined to just be whoever we are. You can definitely change. I never was, I was very shy growing up. I was not outgoing. But then, subsequent events and jobs in my life kind of forced me to be more of an outside person and be more comfortable speaking to, just individuals or to groups, as well as, just gives you the opportunity to raise your confidence. So I think if it's something you want, nobody should tell you you can't do it. I just don't believe it, frankly.
So how are you, as part of your work, how are you teaching entrepreneurship to the students? I know you guys have a curriculum, when PACE itself, there's a curriculum where the students go through with their business ideas, but maybe you could elaborate a little bit more about that.
Sure. So there's been a big change in entrepreneurship education. Steve Blank came out with the Lean Startup and a methodology and a step-by-step methodology on how you go about validating a market, building your business plan. Back when I started, you would have a business plan, and the business plan is what you would show potential investors. And you spend an awful long time on the business plan. And because you spend so much time on the business plan, it's very difficult to pivot. And I think Steve Blank did the whole entrepreneurship world a favor by creating this methodology that is in bite-sized pieces, that you start with A and then you get to Z. And at no point does it say you have to have this 20-page written business plan. And I think it makes it much easier to teach, and for people who have never started a company before and don't know what the first steps to do, it gives them a roadmap of how you move forward. So we stick with that a lot, and a lot of time is spent on customer validation, which is different from the old days where you kind of went into a closet, you came up with just great idea because somebody might steal your idea. Nobody's going to steal your idea. Nobody wants to work that hard. You have to have the passion to move forward with that. So what we say is you got to go out, you got to talk to your potential customers. We make our students talk to hundreds of people, and at some point the feedback becomes fairly consistent, and then they know in which direction they should move. But in general, the first idea out of the box is not the one. It's always evolving.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think kind of bringing this idea and concept of innovation and entrepreneurship together, when you're looking at the businesses and student ideas that come through PACE, how important is an innovative idea versus an idea that you can bring to market, if that makes sense?
Yeah, see, that's an interesting question, because I'm never the judge going, oh, you want to do a t-shirt company? Oh my God, there are like 50 million t-shirt companies out there. I'll never say that because I don't know, right? Everything really depends on the entrepreneur. It depends on what they find in customer discovery. They might find a niche that they feel is underserved, and it could be true. So I never pass judgment, I guess, on people's ideas. What I want them to do is go through the process, because in going through the process you learn so much, and in that learning, whether the t-shirt company works or not, you have learned this process. So the next idea you come up with, because many entrepreneurs are serial entrepreneurs, they have more than one, you use the same process over and over. And in a lot of studies, they show that successful entrepreneurs are about 35. And in a way that makes sense, because you have a lot more of a network. You understand some part of a vertical market that you feel through your work is being underserved. And so, you have a solution that can solve the problem. And you just have more credibility if you have to raise a large amount of money. So, I just see what we're doing is we're focused on teaching a process that hopefully students use over and over and over again.
And maybe I could say, what you say, maximizing the potential of the individual as an entrepreneur.
Correct. That's a great way to put it. Okay. Because I don't know if their idea will work or not. But the one thing I do know is after you finish one of our programs, that you're just going to be that much more savvy on what the process looks like and what you should be looking at as far as area or critical factors of success really in your idea.
Sure. And we'll talk about that later, because I have that in a whole other subsection of questions. Okay. I think, it would be great if you could also share, I know that building that, you pointed out behind you, would that be the Atherton building, we call it?
So the part that's right behind my head right there, that's a Charles Atherton there on the left-hand side. So that's an iconic 90-year-old building that is at the gateway of Manoa. And so we're keeping that, we're renovating that. That's going to be part of our entrepreneurship center. We've named that building RISE, for residences for innovative student entrepreneurs, because there are going to be 373 dorm beds in that building, along with PACE program space.
Oh wow, that's super exciting. So what are your aspirations, from this project?
So we've learned a lot over the 20 years that PACE has been in existence. And one of the things is the university is such a siloed entity, right? It's like, here's business, here's engineering, here's tropical ag. And it's really difficult to get students together. And what we found is that almost consistently, the best teams are the teams that are interdisciplinary. You have some students from business and engineering, you have an art student, and you have a business student. It's just that interdisciplinary perspective that I think fully fleshes out ideas, and it fleshes it out better. When 4 engineers get together and they come to a business plan competition, you know, there's no go-to-market strategy, but they potentially have a great idea. 4 MBAs come to the business plan competition and they have a beautifully written business plan, but the idea is like incremental. It's not quantum. So we really feel that by mixing all these students, as well as helping students find their flock, because it's super hard to find people who are entrepreneurial within the university. I mean, it's like needles in haystacks, right? So we feel that if we can attract them all into one place, they're interdisciplinary, we're just going to stir really vigorously and magic is going to happen.
So how do the students, I mean, again, I don't know if you have the details on it already, but how do the students get into this RISE program? Do they apply and consider, or do
there's kind of 2 tracks, right? One is if you want to reside in the dorms, right? If you want to live in the dorm, there is an application process. You're going to have to be able to articulate, you know, what it is that you hope to get out of the program and what you bring to the program, because it's not just about taking, it's about contributing. And if you're accepted, then, you know, you can reside there. There's a monthly rate that you pay, but then you have access to this space 24/7. You can meet with your team at 2:00 in the morning, you know, all that stuff. The second way to be involved is you don't have to live in this building to take advantage of most of the PACE programs. So if you're a student at Manoa but don't live there, you can still participate, sign up in our programs.
I see. This is so exciting. So when do you think you'll be ready for?
So yeah, it's been a long road, but we hope that this fall we'll start construction, and it would be done for the fall 2023. So in 2 years,
Wow.
over.
Yeah, it's so exciting. You know, I'm really looking forward to seeing it, and the color, you know, pink, and yeah,
yeah.
super cool.
We're making the pink come back.
Yeah, so you know, you have been with PACE for a period of time. I just wanted to kind of, you know, from your perspective and through your lenses, what are some of the strengths of the startups coming out of, you know, the PACE program, out of UH, or even out of Hawaii, if you have that level of perspective?
So as far as those come, the thing that I love about working with students is they don't know they can fail. You know, it's just this level of enthusiasm and belief that they can do it. You know, the world is your oyster. I love it. And that's when I want to get them, is when they don't think they can fail, because, you know, as you get older and life starts dealing you a different hand, you know, you become more risk averse, and they're not risk averse at all. And that's what I think, well, not completely, but I think, you know, that's a valuable attribute to have if you want to be an entrepreneur. You can't really be worried about failure. So, you know, it's different when you're older and you have a mortgage and you have kids and, you know, you have to make the insurance payment and stuff like that. But when you're young, I mean, that's the best time to be involved, to learn, and to give it a go. So, you know, I've got to say that you know, there are some really good ideas that are coming out of engineering, the sciences. They have long incubation periods, though. So they're not necessarily ready for market, but they're ready to explore what sort of market would be most advantageous for them to enter first, and to go through that whole commercialization step 1 process. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. So would you say that PACE, you know, I know you guys have like a fixed duration kind of program, but it's also a little bit nebulous, where I see sometimes as an accelerator, but at the same time, you know, if you're talking about those projects, it's more incubator type, you know, support. So where would you place, you know, you guys?
So I think, you know, primarily we're more about education. We do incubate and accelerate teams, but that's not our main, you know, the reason we would do it is because they're not ready for example, to go to a Blue Startups or to an Elemental accelerator. They need more time. They need more time to develop their technology, to suit it for the market that they feel is, the lowest hanging fruit. So that's when we would kind of hold them in the nest a little longer. But other than that, if they're ready to go to one of the accelerators, we're happy to have them, to feed the accelerators actually.
This wasn't a question that I sent you, but I kind of just thought of it only because of conversations we've had within HTDC and some of the businesses that we're supporting. I noticed that you guys have a relationship with the Family Business Center. Is that something that you're also involved in a lot or not too much?
So the Family Business Center is a program under PACE, but it pretty much has its own director and there's some overlap. We talk about having a lot more overlap. Some of the Family Business Center folks are mentors to our teams. But for the most part, it's a separate program. They don't go through a lot of the educational programs that we offer. They have their own programs because they tend to be more mature, multi-generational businesses.
Yeah, the reason why that kind of got my attention was because, there are businesses that come to us interested in entrepreneurship and trying to figure out, within our family business, how can we be more innovative? So, that was one thing that they came to us for. I think a second thing was about legacy planning,
So they do a lot of that at the Family Business Center. It's kind of succession planning, and yeah, absolutely.
It's interesting. I think one of the big focuses for women in tech, of course, is women in technology. So I was just kind of curious, what is, are there a lot of female-led startups coming out of the PACE program or female entrepreneurs? Do you see any shifts in that, on the rise, down, going down?
So it's interesting because I would like to see a lot more women entrepreneurs heading startups. When you look in a typical startup cohort, I would say that close to half of the participants are women, but they're not the leaders of the startup. That has evolved. It never even used to be half when I think about it. So it's better, but I do think it kind of has to do with a confidence level, or that women tend to be a little more conservative, and men, are going to jump off a 3-story building because, I don't know, maybe that's just testosterone. I don't know, but they just have this more, I'm just going to run on fire, through something. And women tend to be, in my opinion anyway, more reserved, more calculated, more thoughtful about moving forward. So I hope to see more women. I think that, any of our programs will benefit them no matter what they do in their life. I really look at the programs that we offer as being horizontal skills. So you come to UH and you're trained very vertically. You're trained in business, etc. What we're trying to do is we're trying to say, okay, granted, you have that, but what we're trying to teach you is like life experiences, how to work with other people, how to ask questions, how to go up and talk to strangers, things like that I think are not taught at the university, yet are so important when you actually are out there in the workforce.
Yes, I agree. I mean, even within our team now, we grapple with those issues and questions, as we're helping younger team members navigate, their careers.
Speak up, if there's conflict, how do you address the conflict? I love when there's conflict because it's a great learning opportunity, and to help students think through that process. Again, it just helps them.
Does PACE actually do active recruiting of female entrepreneurs, or,
No, we do not.
Okay, just curious, because I know for like Blue Startups, they're very vocal about, getting female startups, female founders and female-run startups into their programs.
Right.
It's great. For the audience, if you have other questions about PACE, feel free to leave them in the Q&A function, and then Susan and we can get to it later. But I just want to shift gears a little bit and talk about your personal journey, as an entrepreneur, when you first in Hawaii and then in Silicon Valley. So you led 2 startups, I believe, or was it 3?
3 altogether.
So two in Silicon Valley and 1 in Hawaii.
Correct.
But kind of listening to some of the other interviews that you gave to other people, it seemed like your journey into entrepreneurship wasn't planned.
It was a mistake, yeah.
Can you, maybe broadly just share, how you found your way into it?
Yeah, and see, this is where, we were talking about earlier, are entrepreneurs, born or can they be trained? And, nature versus nurture, right? And so, I mean, when I was in high school, right, I never wanted to leave Hawaii. I just wanted to stay in Hawaii. So I got a degree in travel industry management, went to Maui, worked for a couple of years, and had the opportunity with the Marriott to transfer to Santa Clara. Did I know Santa Clara was Silicon Valley? Absolutely not. I had no clue. But once you're there and your journey is taking you somewhere, and you take the risk and you say, okay, well, I'll go live in California for a couple of years. That sounds like a great opportunity. And it was fabulous for me. 2 years turned into 17 years. I saw the technology industry just explode during those, I mean, from chips to PCs to the internet. In that 20 years, it just blasted off. And so I was fortunate to be in the right place at the right time. And I was given the opportunity to run after I graduated from San Jose State with my MBA. A few years after that, I was given the opportunity to run a failing company, which I think we're going to talk about before or later. And, I took it, and, kind of like the rest is history, because I loved it. I love the small startup aspect and having less than a dozen employees. Once you get more than 15 employees, I don't have a good time. It's a different skill set. And so just learning that about myself, I think that was a big, big thing.
Mm-hmm. So you worked for a couple of startups. How did you decide your career move? Was intentionality a factor? I'm a master planner, but I always admire people who just go with the flow.
You know what? I've just found that it's very difficult and almost impossible to plan your life. You have to, what I tell students and what I have told, potential employees is that, I can't promise you that this startup is going to actually survive, but what I can promise you is the skills that you come in with today is going to be very different and so much greater when you leave, whenever that is, whether we go bankrupt or you decide to leave somewhere else. And that's what I can guarantee. I think it's very important that you don't have a solid path, but you have a destination in your mind. You know where you want to go, but not like, I'm going to work for this company and I'm going to get there in X years and this is my path. You can't do that for so many reasons right now because so many things are happening so quickly. So I think the best way to get to where your destination is you build a skill set that you feel you'll need at your destination. And the destination always changes, obviously. If you build the skill set, you move toward it, opportunities start opening up. Like the first opportunity I had to actually run a company, I had no inclination, no desire, didn't seek it, didn't think I could get it. And it was a failing publishing company. And I had a very solid business background. I had a very solid education at the Marriott. You just kind of bring that all, and my MBA, the whole leadership thing, you bring that all together and here's an opportunity. And frankly, I had nothing to lose, right? It's failing already. I can't make it any worse. So you take the risk and you move with it. And since then, it's kind of my journey. It's just been one step after another, doing things I love, because now I have a much better idea of what I like and don't like to do.
Mm-hmm. What was your destination at that point in time? Sorry.
You know what? I don't know. I think, for example, I know for sure when I was working at that publishing company, I thought, okay, this is my first CEO role. And then what I'm going to do after that is not after, but my goal was I'm going to run Microsoft. I'm going to run this huge, big company. And then as our small publishing company grew and we got more and more people, and like I said, we hit that threshold of 15 people, and I didn't know everybody. And I felt like everybody wasn't in the canoe and I wasn't there going, okay, go this way. I just didn't like it at all. That's when I knew that small startups was what I was really passionate about. How to take an idea and actually have that become reality. To me, that's the most important thing. With a small team of very passionate people, you have no time to grumble or complain or anything like that. It's all hands on deck all the time.
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what you said in an interview as well that you did with Hawaii Business Magazine. Basically, you said you have to commit to a plan and go out for it. You cannot afford hesitation or indecisiveness. So I guess my question to you is, in all these challenging times you had during your startup journey, what kept you going?
Number one, I don't like to fail. Okay. I don't like to lose. Okay. That's one thing. And so, if somebody tells me that I can't do it, then I'm even more adamant that I am going to do it. So I think there's a certain level of tenacity. The second thing is, and again, going back to that publishing company, since we're talking about it, remember coming back from lunch and, it was still very rocky. And I saw, all my employees' cars parked, in front of the office. And I thought to myself, oh my God, I am responsible for all these people making their car payment, their rent, they're all taking a risk, and I'm responsible for that. And they're looking to me to lead them to a more successful future. So that also drives me. It's the team. I don't want to let anybody down. And I don't like to lose.
Yeah, I think that's a very important, the tenacity, right, in you.
Because there's so many times when it's so disheartening and you don't know if you're on the right track or the wrong track, but you just have to kind of have a belief. And it's time and money, right? So that quote in Hawaii Business, there is no time and there is no money. So you just have to kind of pick the best plan you can, and you're just kind of moving forward as best you can, making the decisions with whatever is in front of you at that point.
Yeah. So that brings me to my next question, actually. It's, like you said, not every startup endeavor would succeed. So, how do you as the founder make the judgment call to walk away?
Okay, so the other thing that I found out is, like, because I only like to grow a company to a certain size, my tenure is usually like about 18 months, I start looking for another job, actually. And by 24 months, I'm usually somewhere else. So the UH job is the longest job I've ever had in my whole life. So I don't want to say I sound cocky or anything, but during my tenure, nothing has failed. Okay, they fail after I leave. And it could be my fault, it could not be my fault. Timing, it's like when the .com busted, a lot of companies went out. And so I haven't really had to experience that. There's some startup ideas that never materialized, and it's just because we just could not get traction. It's when you start working on your pitch and it just sounds weak to you, it's probably weak. You got to be the biggest cheerleader, the most passionate, because that enthusiasm is really what makes people believe in you, that you're going to be able to do it. Even fundraising for this building, I don't even know I'm doing it anymore. And people say, wow, you're so passionate about that. I was like, yeah, I am, but I don't even know I'm doing it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe in it. All the companies that I've had before, it wasn't like, I woke up one day and said, hey, we should do this. Generally, it was somebody else's idea and I needed to execute. So, passion, I think, is a big, important thing in keeping you engaged even during hard times.
How about these startups that you advise? I mean, even if they've gone through the program, but they come back to you and say, hey, Susan, I don't know if it's going somewhere. What kind of advice do you give them to make that judgment call?
See, I don't tell people what to do. I'm number one, I'm not that intimately involved with the company. I can just give advice. I think it's the founders' not responsibility, but it's their decision when to pull the plug, because so much of their life is tied up in it, and they're the best people to make that decision. So I just help them by asking them questions and hopefully clarify what's going on and help them to make a good decision.
That's true. So on that note, though, I think one of the questions I had when I was creating this list was, I've spoken to a lot of entrepreneurs out there, and they say, oh, this was my moment of glory, right? Or something, or my moment of weakness, or things like that. So what was your most defining moment as an entrepreneur?
I think the work that gives me the greatest feeling of satisfaction is working on the startup Trustee. And so it's an online privacy seal company that you still see it, but you got to go backwards when with Netscape and search engines, and there was so much activity. It was a .com boom times, right, in the late 90s, and American companies could not get their head around privacy statements. Privacy statements really were forced onto US internet companies by the European Union. If you're going to sell to European citizens, you need to have a privacy statement on your website. So the highest high that I have to say is when Netscape came in, when Google came in, when Yahoo came in, and they said that they would have our seal on their website. That was truly super exciting, because it was part of building the web, building e-commerce, surmounting an obstacle that could have potentially been a big obstacle to worldwide commerce. So that to me was one of the biggest. And then when we got our zoning changed last week so that we could build this, that was pretty exciting too.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
Small milestones that will lead to bigger stuff, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. And I think with Trustee, kind of solidifying that leadership in privacy at that point in time among like the internet giants in a way, I guess.
Right, exactly. I mean, that getting to those first, what we had focused on was the top 100 most visited sites, right? And so that was our sales targets. And so to start getting one, and nobody wants to be the first, right? So you get one, then two, then three, and then they just all started coming in. And that was super exciting.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So I know that there were some people who entrepreneurs who wanted to join this session. So I want to go on to my next section
Okay.
so that I don't get into trouble with them. You have worked with many startups and entrepreneurs. So number one, I guess, can you tell if a person's cut out to be an entrepreneur? And you kind of answered it in the early part of this.
Yeah, I'm not God. I can't do that.
Okay. Yeah, but like you said, passion is something that is probably a critical factor that drives, that enables success, I guess. In terms of critical skills though, what are some of these critical skills that you think entrepreneurs need to develop as they build their business?
So my feeling is that you really need a strong work ethic. You also can't be easily dissuaded about something. You need to be able to listen. I said you have to have passion. It's hard. especially when you're doing something that no one else has done before and there is no blueprint. Just to have the tenacity and to be able to work with other people. I mean, again, this is kind of like all horizontal skills, right? They're not like, oh, you got to be the best in math. Yeah, it's not that so much as if you're the leader and you have to bring together a team, you have to be collaborative. You have to be able to communicate with people. Critical thinking is another thing that we talk about. It's like there's so much information. How do you distill it down to what is important? And spend time on important decisions and not spend a lot of time on who's going to sit where. That's a waste of time, right? I mean, you should be working on much more important things in the startup phase.
Mm-hmm. So I read somewhere that, sometimes the best ideas come from people who are not experts in that area because they see it from a different perspective, they approach it from a different perspective. But through your lenses, which is, do you happen to see if there are differences in, success rates when it comes to someone applying or building a startup based on their expertise versus someone coming in to solve the problem, but it may not be necessarily their expertise?
So what I've seen, in my time with PACE is that, the students usually come in with the area of expertise. That's their area of study. And so they've come up with some sort of innovation or solution. But as I've said before, they really need to surround themselves with people who do not think like them. Mm-hmm. I always feel that if you build a team and everybody's in, if you build a team of 4 people and everybody's always in agreement, you probably don't need 3 of them. Okay. You should find people that have, and I'm not saying that you want it to be confrontational, but just who look at it from a different perspective and can add to make it an even stronger startup, a stronger product.
Yeah, it's also about that whole idea about finding your co-founders, right, and help, making sure everyone's complementary in a way, different sets and so on. The next question actually drives me nuts a little bit, but I'm just going to ask it anyway because I don't see a lot of difference in terms of skills based on gender. But just from your experience, are there critical skills that you think female entrepreneurs need to develop compared to their peers of the other gender?
I mean, so if I have to put everybody into a stereotypical box, I would tell women entrepreneurs that they need to be more assertive. They need to get out there. They need to take the lead, and they shouldn't be afraid, particularly when they're in our programs where it's okay to fail and there's nothing at stake. Just get up and do it again. Because it's through that experience that you're going to gain confidence. And I think historically, women do not have as much confidence innately as men do. I'm not a psychiatrist. I can't say because girls were brought up in a certain way. I don't know any of that. But just from my observation, the women that I see that do succeed, they are very passionate. They are very dedicated. They work very hard, and they're going to figure it out. And you can tell that they're going to figure it out. And they're the ones that after school, they go out and they keep working at it because they'll do whatever they need to do in order to fulfill their vision for what they want their business to do. So when, in prepping for this, I was thinking about some of the women entrepreneurs, and they're just awesome, self-confident women. And I don't know what their experience was. I don't know them, like, how did you grow up? I don't know what their background was, but I think you really need to have a very strong constitution. You have to be confident in yourself. You can't be afraid of what other people are going to think about you. You have to be passionate about what you do and believe in what you do.
Mm-hmm. So I think that brings me to the next question. What is one advice that you always find yourself giving to entrepreneurs that ask you for advice?
So, The big thing for entrepreneurs, right? It's a journey. It's miles and miles and miles of rough road, right? You got to take the first step. You know, if you have an idea, sign up, right? Don't just think about it. That's where I never worry. I tell students, don't worry about somebody stealing your idea. Nobody wants to work that hard. So, because literally, just because you got the idea does not mean, okay, you know, I'm successful now. Even if you win a business plan competition or any competition, does not mean you're there and you're going to be rich and you have a unicorn. You're so far from that. So you just have to take one step after another and keep moving forward. And that's what I see, you know, with those entrepreneurs who are experiencing success, is they just keep at it. They don't give up. And it may not be fast enough and they may be eating ramen, but it's okay. You know, they believe in it. You know, there is a certain good or satisfaction that they feel personally when it succeeds, and they move forward. So, you know, it just starts with that first step. Quit talking about it and just start doing. Entrepreneurship is about doing.
Yeah, and remember that it takes time, right? I think what's surprising is a lot of people don't know that Facebook took at least 10 years to get to its IPO, same for Airbnb and all these other big companies.
Right.
It took them a decade to get to where they were, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think one thing that was very fascinating for me, you know, when I was doing my research on you was, you know, this article written by Hawaii Business Magazine, who described you as a turnaround artist. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. And that was about your work when you saved the failing tech magazine and made it profitable. So, you know, there was a lot of talk, especially with the pandemic and so on, about this whole idea of a glass cliff, where women are always given something broken to fix. So, you know, what are your thoughts on that? You know, like, why do you think women leaders are always called in to fix something that's broken or breaking? And do you see that as an opportunity?
Yeah, so I never heard of the glass cliff until you had mentioned it in your notes. And so I think it's interesting. And I do think that women are innately better suited for turnarounds. And one of the reasons is because I think we're better listeners. We have less ego involved in it. You know, you can go in, you can collaborate, you can talk to people, find out, get feedback. I mean, that's what I did with the magazine. It's like I didn't even have publishing experience, right? But I understand business, and business is very simple. You got to make more money than you spend. So how can we make more money, right? And so what's standing in what's prohibiting us from making more money? And let's start taking care of those issues, right? So I think sometimes it is good when you don't have a lot of experience, because, and I've been in many different industries, and the different industries I think are good in that it helps me put together a go forward strategy that's not typical of publishing, for example. You know, you can use some of everything that you learn. That's why skill set's so important, to come up with a plan based off, you know, this collaboration of people who are still there to move forward. And frankly, you need that, right? You can't go in and going, okay, I'm Superman, I'm going to come in, I got the plan, everybody get behind me. Does not work like that. You need them to be just as bought into the new plan as you are. You need to talk to them and make sure that they understand where we're going, why, and what do they think about it. And it's constant collaboration. I think innately women are better at that, at the softer skills. And I think you do, because the company's already traumatized.
Yeah, that's true. So how do you think, I mean, you're a leader definitely, you know, within Hawaii. How do you think Hawaii is faring in terms of women in leadership?
Just general leadership?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we're doing very well. I mean, you just look at Bishop Street, you look at the boards, I mean, heavily male. So, I mean, a short answer is I think we got a long way to go.
Do you have any advice for women who are aspiring to get into leadership positions here?
I think you need mentors. I think you need people who are on your side, who will help you. And not just because, oh, you know, I want to be a leader, but just from very early to just, you know, you know, a handful of former students in PACE that I meet regularly, and we talk about where they're going and what they should do. And you know, I enjoy that. I enjoy that they want to keep in touch. I enjoy trying to share what I've learned. And I think, you know, you'll be surprised that, you know, if you meet someone, and this is what I tell students too, just ask if they have time for coffee or a Zoom call or a phone call. And you'd be surprised that people will not say no. They'll always try and figure it out. Hawaii's great like that. But you don't ask, you don't get. So ask, you know, just go out and ask, hey, do you have, you know, half an hour, 45 minutes, you know, can we set up a quick Zoom call? And then just follow up. And you got to show appreciation. It's the other thing that I tell students a lot. It's like, if somebody goes out of their way, like if a guest speaker comes in to talk to a handful of students in a program I have, I want them to each handwrite a thank you note and send it to them. And so if they're doing customer discovery and they've set up a meeting with somebody and that person has agreed to talk to them for an hour, you should be writing them a handwritten note and not email. Everybody can do email. It's not memorable. It doesn't take enough effort. That person spent an hour of their time with you. You should reciprocate by showing the same level of appreciation. And I always say, when you go into the meeting, take them a small thing of cookies. Take them just something that demonstrates your appreciation, your gratitude, because those little things go so far that when you go back to them and you say, can I follow up with you? I've done more discovery and I want to run by you. I guarantee you they will be there for you because they want to help. But you got to ask, and you have to show appreciation and gratitude. Just like your mother told you.
Yes. So I, you know, in the interest of time, I do want to remind the audience that you can send in your questions for Susan through the Q&A function. It's been a little quiet because I think everyone's just listening to what you have to say.
Yeah, I know. They're enthralled. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. You know, we all know definitely this, all this passion that you have in helping Hawaii develop the next generation of, you know, entrepreneurs, innovators, leaders. What else are you passionate in besides work, I guess? Or is work equals passion?
You know what? Work is a passion, but work is not my life, right? I think as I get older, you know, I'm much better at balancing. And I like what I do, and I like, you know, most of the people I work with. So, you know, that makes it fun. But for me, I think, you know, I love to travel. I love to see other parts of the world, how other people live. I particularly like third world, right? Poorer countries. Because, you know, I come back with an appreciation for what we have. And I think, you know, a lot of times we forget that we are so fortunate to have like water when we turn on the faucet. So I think, you know, I love to travel. I love to play golf. Yeah, I try to find a balance.
Well, with the pandemic, you know, even the simple pleasures of life seem just so important, like traveling.
Absolutely. That you can't do. Yeah, exactly.
So we have a question from Vince in the Q&A. He's asking, what was the name of the methodology you mentioned? I think it was Steve Blank, Susan.
Lean Startup.
Yeah, so Lean Startup.
Steve Blank. Yeah.
Okay, so for Vince, it's Lean Startup by Steve Blank.
Correct.
And then the next question we have is, as a parent, how can I help prepare my daughter to be a leader in a male-dominated business industry?
So great question, because I do feel it all starts when girls are young, and you need to not do everything for them. You need to let them fail. You need to have them stretch their comfort zone. you can't let them quit when things are going tough and, you know, it's right in the middle of soccer season, they don't want to go. It's like, no, you got to go. You know, you signed up, you're part of a team, people are counting on you, you have to go. You have to instill those values of teamwork. You know, I always love when I would hire employees who were in sports teams, because it takes a lot of work and a lot of dedication to be good at something. And I think sports really embodies a lot of that. That's not to say that's the only thing. You know, if your daughter likes to dance or whatever it is, you know, I don't think it's good. It's like, well, I did ballet, then I did soccer, and then, you know, the next month I did something else. There's got to be a work ethic, a perseverance in overcoming of obstacles that ultimately leads to success, right? And it has to start small. And I always say you got to start small, where if they fail, you know, and they didn't make the kick for the goal, who cares, right? Nobody cares. But when you're 30 and, you know, you've failed to do something, the consequences are bigger. So let them make as many small mistakes as you possibly can, because I think that builds confidence, character, and decision making.
Awesome. I hope that answered your question. Vince had another question for you, Susan. He's asking, what future startup trends do you see for the next few years?
Artificial intelligence, I think, is going to be huge. It's, you know, the technology is all there. It just needs to all come together now to have life-changing implications. You know, we've been talking about the driverless car forever. You know, technology is all there now. Now it's just humans that are just wary of it. But when you think of, if there are driverless cars, how that's going to affect your life. And there's all these different startups now that are going to be enabled because people don't have to drive their car, right?
Mm-hmm.
How is that going to affect the insurance company, car insurance companies? How does that affect, you know, what you're going to do with all the free time now you have because your car is driving you there? What's it going to do for mass transit? Just so many different possibilities, right? But I think automation, technology, it's definitely here, and it's going to be here for a long time, and we're going to just see quantum changes in how we do things.
Yeah, I mean, I heard of this German company that was doing a flying car. So, it's just, you know, it's
not unheard of, right? Yeah.
You know, we've seen it in movies, so I guess it's coming, you know, to reality.
Exactly, coming soon.
Yep. The next question that I had, what advice would you give to a technology-based startup looking to make a go of it in Hawaii? Looking to make, basically, I think, make inroads into Hawaii.
Oh.
Or expand out of Hawaii. It may not be the best question for you, but yeah.
To expand out of Hawaii?
He said to make a go of it in Hawaii.
So trying to have a startup in Hawaii.
Yeah.
You know, again, I would refer you back to the Steve Blank methodology. And the first thing is, you know, what is your idea and how is it serving a local population? And, you know, the bigger the population, the more likely you are to succeed, right? And then, you know, on the, what you're referring to, another part is, how does a local company then go out? You know, you can, I feel that Hawaii is a great place to prototype things. You know, you can try it and work out the kinks here. And I think there are certain industries that it's great to work out the kinks here, whether it be alternative energy or tropical agriculture. It's just a natural place to incubate. But then you're going to have to figure out, you know, who do you sell it to then on the mainland? Because you typically are going to have to go to mainland or somewhere, another country, in order to scale if you wanted to get that big. So I think, you know, it just comes down to having a good idea that people want and talking to your customers.
Yes, Thank you, Susan. And I think to that person's question, if you want to tune in next week, we are going to have Shanoa Farnsworth from Blue Startups. She might be able to give you actually another perspective on how you can
definitely,
I don't use Hawaii as your base or expand in Hawaii and so on. So join us next week for the webinar with Shanoa. So I think just to be conscious of time, I want to wrap up this session with you, Susan, with one question I ask every single guest that joins us. So give us one word you would like to leave the audience with today and why.
So my word is change. And it's because that's the future, and to embrace change, because the more you try to fight it, the harder your life becomes.
The only constant is change, right? That's what they say.
Well said.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Susan, for your time.
Thank you, Ellen.
Today.
Thank you, everybody.